Let's transport ourselves to the picturesque and idyllic beaches of Thailand, more precisely to the island of Koh Tao. Koh Tao translates to Turtle Island, and although it's not as large as its neighboring islands, Koh Samui, where the international airport is located, and Koh Phangan, known for its full moon beach parties, Koh Tao has earned its own reputation over the years, primarily due to its magnificent underwater world that attracts scuba diving and snorkeling enthusiasts, as well as its constant parties. However, like in many other places blessed with natural beauty, Koh Tao has a dark side. Alongside the lively entertainment and tourists come illegal substances and organized crime. Petty thefts from tourists have become commonplace, although they are not unique to such exotic locations. However, in the latter half of 2014, the island gained a truly chilling notoriety as the Island of Death, from which it has yet to recover. Like other vacationers, Hannah Witheridge and David Miller arrived on Koh Tao in search of adventure in late August 2014. Hannah, a 23-year-old student from the British village of Hensby, wanted to relax before starting her master's degree in speech therapy. She believed that Thailand would be the perfect place for it. Her family tried to dissuade her from the trip, but Hannah suddenly booked the tickets and declared that she would go after all. She arrived on the island in the company of 3 friends and kept in constant contact with her family, who were worried about her safety. David lived on the small island of Jersey, located between Britain and France. The 24-year-old engineering student was about to begin an internship at a mining company, and also decided to relax before his final push in his studies. He came to Koh Tao with 2 close friends. Hannah and David were not acquainted before visiting the island, but they quickly became friends when they stayed at a small hotel just a few steps from Sairi Beach. The students were enjoying what the exotic island had to offer: the opportunity to see a reef shark or a manta ray while diving, or to admire the breathtaking views from the viewpoint. And if they wished to relax and unwind, there were plenty of restaurants and bars right on the beach. On September 14, 2014, around 7 o'clock, Hannah and David, along with their friends, were at a beachside bar. After midnight, Hannah and her 3 friends entered another bar on the beach. Surveillance cameras captured David going into a supermarket and walking the streets, and by 2 o'clock in the morning, he joined Hannah. After 2:15, Hannah and David left the bar together, taking a romantic stroll along the beach, unable to resist the allure of the ocean. The young couple was just a few meters away from the safety of their hotel. Soon after sunrise, the hotel owner was awakened by one of his beach cleaning staff. He followed her to Sairi Beach, where a horrifying scene awaited him. Blood had mixed with the sand. What caught his eye first was Hannah's body. The young woman was partially undressed, brutally beaten, and likely a victim of violence. 2 meters away from her in the water was another body, David. His head showed severe injuries, but it would later be revealed that he had died from drowning. Near the bodies lay clothing soaked in blood, along with 2 presumed murder weapons, a bloodied garden hoe and a wooden bat. The news of the crime quickly spread across Koh Tao. For an island with only 6 police officers, it was a serious challenge. The officers couldn't even properly secure the crime scene, and onlookers managed to take numerous photos of the bodies, which later ended up on the internet and even came to the attention of the victims' relatives. The way the police initially handled the case could have embarrassed Thailand on the world stage, so an officer was sent from the main headquarters to oversee the work of the local police. He promptly offered his apologies to the victims' parents. Despite the difficulties in launching the investigation, the police focused on the evidence: cigarette butts, the murder weapons, and the bodies of Hannah and David. They found DNA from 2 men. It became evident almost immediately that the course of the investigation would be heavily influenced by one crucial force: the desire to protect Thailand's tourism industry at all costs. Fearing that the murders could impact the number of tourists coming to the country, the authorities exerted immense pressure on the police to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. This also meant shifting suspicions as far away from Thailand as possible, even though investigators had barely begun their work. As a result, the investigation focused on those who had traveled to Thailand with Hannah and David, as well as migrants, essentially ignoring the local population. A police representative justified this blatant bias by simply stating that Thais wouldn't commit such acts. From the very beginning, other problems emerged. Although the police announced that checkpoints had been established to prevent anyone from leaving the island, A potential suspect had already managed to flee. Christopher Allen Ware was a close friend of David's, and the two had stayed together in an ocean view bungalow. The police hinted at a crime of passion. Christopher came under suspicion due to wounds on his hand and the fact that his bloodied pants were found in David's suitcase. 2 days later, Christopher was arrested at the airport along with his brother James, but suspicions were quickly dropped. Because of the two murder weapons, the police concluded that there were two perpetrators, and James, a possible accomplice to Christopher, if there even was one, had left the island before the murders occurred. The police later added that the DNA found on the cigarette butts on the beach did not match Christopher's DNA. With no viable suspects, the police once again turned their attention to migrants from Myanmar, comparing the DNA found at the crime scene with hundreds of individuals and conducting interviews with many others. Rumors began to circulate about the police mistreating migrants during interrogations, including threats and scalding with hot water. This wasn't the last time such allegations would arise during the investigation. Additionally, the police obtained surveillance footage from numerous bars and restaurants near the crime scene. However, many of the cameras were not operational at the time. The existing footage did not provide all the necessary information to the police. Later, suspicions arose that the police simply did not receive all the videos that could have filled important gaps, including the pier from which the perpetrators could have escaped on a boat. Nevertheless, the police focused on Burmese nationals, and within just 2 weeks of the investigation, a turning point occurred in the case. Officers identified 3 young men who were near the crime scene and caught on camera. These young men were named Mon Mon, Zo Leng, and Y Pio. They admitted to being on the beach on the night of the murders. Mon Mon was released as he could prove his legal presence in the country. However, 22-year-olds Zo and Y were detained as illegal migrants. Exactly 1 day after their detention, the young men confessed to the murder of Hannah and David. Investigators were confident that they had found the killers due to 2 crucial pieces of evidence. First, their DNA perfectly matched the DNA samples found at the crime scene and on Hannah's body. Second, detectives believed they could prove the theft of David's phone by Y Fio. He claimed he had simply found it on the beach and intended to sell it to make some money. However, Thai police contacted the British police, National Crime Agency, and using the phone's serial number, confirmed that it belonged to David. Following their confession, a shocking and unconventional reenactment of the crime followed, in which the men publicly demonstrated to the media what they allegedly did to the victims and asked for forgiveness. Despite this, for a moment, it seemed like the case was closed. The men stated that they had been drinking on the beach on the night of the murders and purportedly confessed to the police that their main target was the girl. However, things soon became much more complicated. Firstly, the men had never had any prior issues with the law. As soon as they were allowed to speak with a representative from their home country's embassy, they retracted their confessions. Zo Leng and Y Fio claimed that their confessions had been coerced. They alleged that they were beaten, left naked in a cold room, threatened with electric shocks, and hinted that they could be killed if they didn't confess. They were also told that if they confessed, 2 years in prison. The interrogation was conducted in the presence of a single translator who happened to work as a shopkeeper on the island. Other compelling evidence that, according to investigators, they had against the men soon came under close scrutiny. At the center of these disputes were DNA samples. While the police claimed that they had taken several samples for testing from Hannah's body, the murder weapons and cigarette butts found nearby, it was no longer a secret to anyone that the police had poorly secured the crime scene. Officers simply didn't know how to properly handle a crime scene, allowing tourists, journalists, and onlookers to roam the beach for days after the murders had occurred. The claim that Zo Leng had stolen David's phone also seemed suspicious because officers had previously admitted that the phone had been given to them by David's friend. Nonetheless, the trial of the accused began in July 2015. The 18 days of the trial stretched over several weeks and revealed even more problems. Firstly, the defense was not given additional time to prepare for the trial and was only allowed a brief meeting with their clients before the trial began. It was only during the trial that they gained access to the 900-page police report, which was filled with unclear and contradictory information. Key evidence contained errors, such as the initial DNA analysis report having the wrong date and consisting of handwritten parts that were partially crossed out. Clearly, this became such an issue that even the prosecutors publicly demanded corrections to the documents. Moreover, many potential witnesses who could have provided alibis for the accused or come forward with additional information refused to do so, fearing persecution by the authorities. This was especially true for migrants who were already in a vulnerable position because the majority of them were in the country illegally. On July 10th, it seemed that the defense had achieved a small victory when the court ordered a retesting of DNA evidence in the case. Amidst allegations of possible contamination of the samples, a claim supported by the country's chief forensic pathologist, Dr. Pornthip Rojanasunand, who had not been allowed to participate in the original investigation. However, it quickly became apparent that key DNA samples had been completely depleted during the initial analysis, particularly the DNA from Hannah and David's bodies. DNA from the murder weapons was available, and according to the police, still linked the accused to the crime. But when the country's chief forensic pathologist was allowed to conduct tests himself, he stated that he had found DNA from another man, but it did not match any of the accused. Additionally, at least one witness claimed that the hoe and wooden stick had been cleaned after they were found. The defense consulted with renowned Australian forensic scientist Jane Taupin, who found the speed at which the Thai police collected and analyzed DNA samples to be unusual, especially considering that one sample contained the DNA of multiple individuals, including the victims. The police claimed that they were able to isolate and analyze the samples in less than 12 hours. Jane indicated to the lawyers that this was highly unusual and suspicious for the complex analysis of this kind. Given that several forms of these tests contained errors and some parts were rewritten, Jane subtly suggested that either the tests were conducted incorrectly or they were simply fraudulent. Overall, it seemed that the defense would have no trouble dismantling the case of the prosecution. However, they made two strange decisions. Firstly, they did not request Jane Taupin to testify in court, even though Jane insisted that her testimony would be crucial in shedding light on the problems with the DNA analysis. It is unclear why the defense did not want Jane to testify, but most likely, the lawyers feared that the testimony of a foreign expert would bias the judges against their clients. In addition to this, the defense only mentioned the DNA evidence in their closing statements along with other information, while the prosecutors made DNA matching a central part of the trial and constantly reminded the judges of it. This decision ultimately determined the outcome of the case. In late December 2015, the accused were found guilty and sentenced to the maximum penalty. In 2016 and 2017, the appeals were unsuccessful, and in 2019, the final verdict was delivered when Thailand's Supreme Court upheld the sentence, emphasizing that the evidence against the convicted individuals was clear, reliable, and detailed. In August 2020, in honor of the king's birthday and as a sign of his leniency, the sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Following the verdict, protests took place in Myanmar, and various human rights organizations called for an investigation into numerous allegations against the Thai police. British media dubbed Koh Tao the Death Island. However, this bad publicity did not lead to any significant consequences as the two men remained in prison. Although the number of tourists slightly decreased immediately after the murders, it did not have a long-term impact on Thailand's tourism. Nevertheless, this did not quell the wave of outrage from the international community, which believed that the Burmese migrants had been made scapegoats from the beginning. An authoritative publication even wrote that nobody really believed that they had killed the British tourists. Online activists from Anonymous hacked the Thai police website and released a controversial video accusing the police of framing the young men. The video received support from an unexpected source, Hannah's sister. Laura posted a furious message on Facebook criticizing Thailand. If the guys didn't kill Hannah and David, then who did? The most popular theory is the involvement of the Koh Tao Mafia. This theory emerged shortly after the murders when a 25-year-old street musician named Sean McCanna posted on Facebook that he knew who committed the murders. Sean claimed to have seen two local residents harassing Hannah on the night before the killings, and David came to her rescue. Sean took a photo of the Thai men and posted it online, allegedly receiving threats as a result. Sean fled the island, claiming that the local mafia wanted to kill him. In reality, when referring to the mafia on the island, people often mean influential families rather than organized crime groups. One particular family was frequently associated with the case, as they owned more cafes and restaurants on the beach than anyone else. The owner of the hotel where Hannah and David stayed also belonged to this family. This man played a significant role in the investigation and was even present on the beach when the police collected evidence. According to his account, he demanded an explanation for why Sean was seen covered in blood on the night of the murders. A week after the murders, in the presence of two police officers, he questioned Sean about the blood. Sean did not provide a clear answer, left the bar, and ran to a supermarket. The men followed him and asked why he had run away, claiming that no one had threatened him. For some time, the police considered Sean a suspect, but eventually allowed him to leave the island after he admitted that he had cut himself before the murders. Supporting the theory that the culprits belonged to an influential Thai family, and that's why they were protected by the police, is a police report stating that a member of the influential island family was considered a suspect. However, the police officer who recorded this information was transferred, and there was no further mention of the family. It's possible that this theory contains some truth, but the actual truth may lie elsewhere. We simply don't know. What we can be sure of is the tragic loss of Hannah and David, two young people at the beginning of their independent lives who went on vacation to celebrate their academic achievements. Their lives were cut short at a time when they should have felt happier and more carefree than ever before. It's hard to imagine what both families went through, but Hannah's family had to endure it for the second time. In 2019, Hannah's sister Laura became seriously ill, and on September 16, 2019, exactly 5 years and 1 day after Hannah's death, Laura also passed away. Throughout the time that the guys continue to serve their sentences in prison, the number of tourists on Koh Tao who have died under unexplained circumstances continues to rise. Local police quickly close cases, classifying incidents as accidents or claiming that individuals wanted to end their own lives. In 2015, 23-year-old Christina Ansley mysteriously died in her bungalow, and the police closed the case without conducting toxicological tests or even talking to the last person who saw her alive in her bungalow. That same year, 25-year-old British national Nick Pearson died on Koh Tao. His body was found in the sea the day after he went missing. According to the police, he fell from a 15-meter cliff into the sea and drowned. However, his parents are convinced that this is physically impossible due to the location of the hotel. In 2015, 29-year-old Frenchman Dimitri Povse was found hanged in his bungalow. The police considered the case straightforward, despite the fact that the man's hands were tied behind his back, and there were lacerations on his body. In 2016, 26-year-old Luke Miller was found dead in a swimming pool. In 2017, 23-year-old Russian Valentina Novozhenova disappeared, leaving her passport, phone, money, and return ferry ticket in her room. That same year, 30-year-old Belgian tourist Elise Dalemain died, and her body was found in the jungle. The police believed that the woman's death was her own decision, but the mystery surrounding her death became even more convoluted when it was revealed that Elise had gone to great lengths to conceal her true identity by staying at a hotel on Koh Tao.